So another question I get all the time is, Matt, how much should I be putting into these cash value life insurance policies? And so I wanted to talk about it. And the reality is, how much you should be putting in, it really depends. But generally speaking, there's two major types of funding strategies that I just want to educate you about and talk about. And then there's just kind of one general rule of thumb that I think it makes sense for all of you to understand. And so the general rule of thumb is simply going to be, you're going to get out what you put in, right? This isn't some magical vehicle that takes $50 a month and makes you die a multimillionaire. That's not what this is. That doesn't exist. And so if there's people out there that are telling you it does exist, I would say they're wrong. But I think, intuitively, you know this. You know that with all things in life, you get out what you put in. But on top of that, I'm also going to tell you that time is in a lot of ways more important than what you put in. So the more time you have, the better this is going to work. And that's true of any investment. I know that I'm not saying anything here that's revolutionary, right? Time value of money is super powerful. You would be shocked at the amount of gains that you receive when you have time to wait. Time is definitely more important, but you have to understand that what you put in is directly correlated to what you get out. Having said those things, let's talk about these different types of funding strategies and really how they work. So the first type of funding strategy is going to be for those people who are maybe a little bit younger. And by younger, I mean, let's say younger than 50. So younger than 50, and you're funding these policies from your income. Okay, you're funding these policies from your income. You're working, you pay taxes, you fund this policy from excess cash flow. And so this would be an example of somebody who's 56 years old. And so they're actually older than what I just mentioned. I said 50 or younger. They're 56. They're still working maybe until 70. And they're going to fund this out of their cash flow. And they've got $3,000 a month excess cash flow to fund this policy. And so it's going to look something like this, 15 years of funding to age 70, $3,000 a month going in, $36,000 a year. They're funding it out of their income. They know how much money they're making. This is discretionary cash flow. They know they can make these payments. Okay, that's the first type of funding strategy. And these can be as low as $500 a month, all the way up to, we've seen $8,000 to $10,000 a month. It just depends on your income. You're funding it out of your income. That's the first type of funding strategy. The second type of funding strategy is going to be for people who are maybe a little bit older, or they've had some time to build up some assets. And they're getting to a point where they want to do what's called an asset reposition. What that means is they've got a pile of money, it's all invested, and they want to start diversifying that pile of money. They want to reposition the assets they've already built up. And so what we're looking at here is a pretty typical example of like an asset reposition strategy. Maybe you got $5 million built up, $3 million built up in a non-qualified portfolio, or maybe even in an IRA. It just depends on how old you are. And you want to start taking some of that risk off the table, and you're not thrilled with bonds. Okay, that's the typical profile of somebody who looks at an asset reposition strategy. They already have money built up. It's sitting in investments. They want to diversify or de-risk their portfolio. And so let's just say that they're going to peel off $1 million of their $3 million or $5 million portfolio. And we're going to do that in a chunk over 5 years. So in this example, $200,000 a year for 5 years. That's not coming from their income. That's coming from their other assets they've already built up that they're looking to de-risk, diversify, take some of that risk off the table. They're selling their assets in their non-qualified brokerage account and paying that in as a life insurance policy premium over 5 years. And so, they know that they've got $1 million to work with because it's already sitting in their brokerage account. They just have to sell $200,000 a year for the next 5 years. That's the second most common type of funding strategy. And again, these range in size. Maybe it's as low as $50,000 a year all the way up as high as $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. It just depends on how big your portfolio is that you're looking to diversify. And I would say that this is a huge chunk of the conversations that we have, especially right now, because so many people are not satisfied with the bond options that are out there when they're looking to de-risk and diversify their portfolio. And I agree. I think that life insurance in a lot of ways is a much better option than taking $1 million and putting it into bonds for a lot of the reasons that we've already discussed throughout this video series. So how much do you need to contribute? Well, I would say $500 a month is the minimum. But then the second question is, how are you going to fund it? Are you funding it from income, or are you doing an asset reposition? And then depending on your answer to that question, there's two different ways to think about how much you fund. Number one is going to be, what's your discretionary income? If it's an income play. If it's an asset reposition, it's what's the total value of your portfolio, and how much of that portfolio are you looking to de-risk or diversify? And then from there, we come up with some options for you. So generally, how much you contribute, that's up to you, but these are the two main ways that people fund cash value life insurance.